Good morning and welcome to Family Life. We're so glad that you're here today, whether you're in person or online. If you are in person, please take a moment to fill out the connection card located in the seat back in front of you. After you filled it out, drop it in the black box located in the back of the auditorium or in the lobby. If you're a first-time guest, we wanted to say thank you so much for being here. After you filled out that card, take it to the hub that's in the lobby. Someone will be there to say hello, give you even a free gift. We're so excited you're here and we want to say thank you for being here. If you're online, you can fill out the digital connection card at FLA-Church.org. Our connection card is also located on the Family Life Church app. We're so glad you're here. Our service will start shortly. Good morning and welcome to Family Life. We're so glad that you're here today, whether you're in person or online. If you are in person, please take a moment to fill out the connection card located in the seat back in front of you. After you filled it out, drop it in the black box located in the back of the auditorium or in the lobby. If you're a first-time guest, we wanted to say thank you so much for being here. After you filled out that card, take it to the hub that's in the lobby. Someone will be there to say hello, give you even a free gift. We're so excited you're here and we want to say thank you for being here. If you're online, you can fill out the digital connection card at FLA-Church.org. Our connection card is also located on the Family Life Church app. We're so glad you're here. Our service will start shortly.
Good morning and welcome to Family Life Church. We're so glad you're here with us in person and online. I'll invite you now to stand as we begin to sing together. And angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plains, and the mountains in reply And shepherds, why this jubilee? Why your joyous strains prolong? What the great glad tidings be, which inspire your heavenly song? Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Come to Bethlehem and see Christ, whose birth the angels sing. Come adore on bended knee Christ the Lord, the newborn King. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, and I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire and darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. Sing all my life. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, and I will sing of the goodness of God. Sing, I love you, Lord. And I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. And all my days you've been held in your hands. The moment that I wake up till I lay my head, and I will sing of the goodness of God. Sing all my life. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now, and I give you everything. It's running after me, your goodness. I will sing of the goodness of God. And I will sing, and I will sing of the goodness of God. And I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel. That mourns in lonely exile here, until the Son of God appears. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Oh, come, thy dayspring, come and cheer our spirits by thine advent here. Disperse the gloomy clouds of night, and death dark shadows put to flight. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Rejoice, 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 Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Oh, come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here, until the Son of God appears. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. God, we thank you that we can rejoice your name, that we have that comfort to know that we can call upon your name and you will show up. God, I thank you that we get to take this time, specifically each week we get to take this time, and throughout this Christmas season, God, we thank you for the time to be able to rejoice your name, rejoice your Son, and really reflect upon that, Jesus. I pray that, God, that you will help us take some time throughout this busy season with all the fun festivities and whatnot, God, that we will be able to remember who you are, God, and that you will give us the peace we need, the joy we need to affect the people around us so that we can celebrate your name, celebrate your Son with so much joy and peace. And we can stop and take away from the chaos of it and really be able to make room for you and celebrate you the correct way, Jesus. We thank you for your Son. I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And here is where I lay it down, every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Shake up the ground. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your ways better. Your ways better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your ways better. Your ways better. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you, yeah, Lord, to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. I will make room. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your ways better. Your ways better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your ways better. Your ways better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your ways better. Your ways better. God, we thank you that we have your way, Jesus. We thank you that we do not need to take the steering wheel. We do not need to decide everything in our life, God. You are there to walk alongside us, Jesus. And so we thank you in your name, God. We thank you for all that you're doing in our hearts and minds, God. We thank you for our community. We thank you for our church. And God, let us not lose sight in the excitement of all of the small things and big things, God, that you're doing in our hearts and minds and lives, Jesus. In your name, amen. Amen. You can be seated. And as you guys are getting seated, we do want to recognize one person today. He had a birthday or just on Friday. And this person you might know, his name is Pastor Brent Osborne. You know, this guy right here. with the crazy sweater on. And so on the count of 3, we're just going to shout a big happy birthday. 1, 2, 3.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Ripe old age of 38. Realizing that I don't know anything. So it's all awesome. But so glad you're here today. Welcome to Ugly Sweater Sunday. Some of you might be wondering, why is he wearing that? It's Ugly Sweater Sunday. And so we've made the determination that it's okay to have fun in church, all right? That we want this to be a place that is fun. And so that's why we are doing it. And if you don't like fun, this might not be the right place for you. But we are glad you're here today. We would love for you to take a moment, fill out that connection card that's right there in that row in front of you. You can drop that in the black box as you exit the auditorium. There's one on each side of the door. Also, if you're a first-time guest, we want to say thank you for being here. So glad that you've decided to be a part of Family Life this morning. And we'd love for you to take that connection card, fill it out, and then across the lobby is the hub. We'd love for you to swing by there, drop that card off. Someone's there to say hello. Thank you for coming, but also to give you a free gift, our way of saying thank you. So make sure you take a moment and do that. If you're online today, you can fill out the online connection card that's available at FLA-Church.org. And then you can use the digital one, whether you're in person or online. Just download the Family Life Church app. Just search FLA Anacortes, and you'll be able to find that from any app store. And that's a great way to stay connected on the app and on the web. So make sure you are checking those out. We've had a busy week here at Family Life. On Wednesday, we had our Jingle Jam, which was awesome. There was confetti cannons. I saw a confetti cannon in the tree earlier today. We finally got that cleared out. It was awesome. But people had fun. There's people in our community that came and had fun. And so I want a great job to Sierra and her team and everyone that served on that. They did phenomenal. And then we had our women's Christmas lunch on Friday. And then we have our wrap and pack tonight at 5 o'clock for all the ladies that want to come. It's just a great time. There's a lot of gifts to wrap for from our giving tree. And so make sure, ladies, you come to that. It's going to be fun. It's not just boring wrapping. It's not just, there's other fun things. All right, so make sure you take a moment and come out to that. And then also visit FLAchurch.org. It's going to tell you everything that you need to know that's happening this Christmas season. So we have Christmas with Family Life coming up next Sunday. Our kids are going to come. They're going to be singing. They have some songs for us, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And then on December 24th, we're going to be doing our Christmas Eve service. That starts at 5 o'clock right here. It's going to be fun, all right? So we planned it all out this last week, and we sat down as a team, and they said, okay, what do you want to do? Because they think I know what I want to do. And they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to have fun. And they go, okay. And then we decided to have fun and planned it. And it's going to be fun. And I promise you it's going to snow. Okay? So, promises right there. But the 24th, but then there will be no service on Sunday the 25th, the next day. All right? So don't show up. If you do, you'll be by yourself. We apologize. It will also be cold because you'll be outside. So make sure you don't come on Sunday the 25th because we're not going to be having any service. But then, what a great way to start the new year. 10 a.m. Sunday morning, January 1st, right here. We are going to kick off our new, I'll tell you a little bit about it later. I'm going to let you in on a secret between us, okay? Just between us, there's going to be a secret later that we're going to talk about. No one else knows except for us, so shh, all right? But we'll talk about that in a minute. But the kids are going to have fun. They're going to have pajamas and Pop-Tarts, all right? Just roll your kids out of bed, roll them right on in. We're going to feed them. It's going to be fun. But make sure you come and are part of that. I want to say we're continuing in our series, God with us. And it's always interesting. Sierra started the series, and we had Chris last week, and both of them did such amazing jobs. And so, I feel like, man, I am, I don't really have anything to say at this point on this series. But, one thing that I love about having multiple communicators in our church is one, it's equipping our church to be better at developing pastors and leaders and teachers. So that's one of the things that why we do that. People might ask, why do you let other people preach when you're not here or even when you are here? And I say it's because it's a way to develop people. Because if we believe that we want to multiply, if we believe that we want to plant churches and begin to spread into other communities, we need multiple communicators. And so I'm excited and grateful for Sierra and for Chris and the phenomenal job that they did. But our big idea today is this. God with us brings a future hope, but requires a present action. All right? God with us brings a future hope, but requires a present action. One of the things that you might be going through or experiencing right now as you walk through this Christmas season is there might be something that you are hoping for, and it just seems really far off, right? That you might be hoping for something in your marriage or in your finances. Maybe you're hoping for a gift or something to show up under the Christmas tree, and you're hoping and you're wanting to see this different change, this thing you're hoping for, but it feels so far away. You ever felt like that? That, man, that change, that thing that I'm hoping for is never going to show up. Now, here is the good news. If you are a follower of Jesus, you have a future hope. That regardless of what happens here on earth and in your life, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever it might be, the future hope of followers of Jesus is that we get to spend eternity with him. That death is not the end of our story, but we get to spend eternity with Jesus. So like even in death, we have something to look forward to. But what about right now? What about this present moment that we're in? Now, one of the things that's going to happen today is we're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 1 that gives the genealogy of Jesus. Now, how many of you, when you've ever read through the Bible or you've read chapters of the Bible, you get to where like, and so-and-so was the father of so-and-so, and so-and-so was the father of so-and-so, and so-and-so was the father of so-and-so, so-and-so was the father, and you just went, okay, we're going to skim it, or just skip it, and move on to the next thing. I drew the long straw. And I get to talk about the genealogy of Jesus today. And so we're going to talk about some stories that are in the genealogy of Jesus. And here's what I love about family trees and things like this. The holidays show up, and you know what you realize? This is the one thing that you realize every holiday. You are just a few DNA strands away from a crazy person, right? You sit across the table, and you're like, we are related, really, right? Now, for us, family trees aren't as big of a deal. We don't necessarily go, oh, tell me about your family. Now, Angela's grandparents, they are family tree aficionados. They can tell, they go back and back and back and back and back. Like, it's crazy, it's incredible. But we don't have really a big focus on that in our everyday life. Now, if you are a Jewish person, and especially if you are a first century Jewish person, your family tree mattered. Because what we know about, if you go all the way to Genesis, right? There's this man, his name is Abraham. And God says, I am going to make you a great nation. I'm going to give you land, and I'm going to give you descendants as many as the stars. Have you ever been in a place where maybe there wasn't a lot of light pollution, and you looked up and you saw way more stars than you've ever seen before in your life? And you're like sitting there going like, holy cow. They're yellow and orange, and there's green. And like, so imagine being Abraham and God saying, listen, I'm going to give you as many children as stars in the universe. And you looked up and he's like, because Abraham was an old guy. His wife was old. And so he kind of laughed. His wife laughed about this and like, it's not going to happen. But what we see in the Old Testament is that God is faithful to continue to do what he promised. And so if you have ever read in the Old Testament, maybe you've come across this section where it said that it is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those are three very significant people in the family tree. Because you wanted to be able, if you were a good Jewish person, you wanted to be able to trace your family tree back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Like, I'm in that line. And then as it extended, it got to King David. And you wanted to be able to see, am I in King David's line? And then it gets to Jesus. And that's what we see in Matthew chapter 1. And we're going to see some stories mainly about how a future hope requires some present action. Now, I'm going to tell you that as we go over these stories today, they're not Christmas stories. They're weird. And you're going to go, how does this tie into Christmas? Stay in the boat and we'll get there, okay? Because some of you are going to just go, this is not, whoo, because these are not stories we talk about in Sunday school. Like, they're different, okay? So let's just see how weird Jesus' family tree is today, all right? Because it's a weird one. Matthew chapter 1, here's what it says, right? This is a record of the ancestors of Jesus the Messiah, a descendant of David and of Abraham. Significant, right? Jesus, a descendant of David, King David, big guy, important dude, who's also a descendant of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar. We're going to stop right there. All right? So, Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah, and whose mother was Tamar. Did you notice there's something in this genealogy? It happens 4 times before it gets to Mary. Mary's the 5th. Throughout this genealogy, 4 times a woman is mentioned. Women did not have a place in this culture and society and time. But in the birth and genealogy of Jesus, 4 women are mentioned because they're very significant. And this first one is Tamar. And so here's, if you're taking notes, if you're on the app, you might be wondering, okay, we want a future hope. We have this future hope that we're hoping for. God with us is the future hope, but it requires a present action. And so what is a present action that I may have to do right now to have a future hope? And thought number 1 is this, is courage. If you want to have a future hope, you have to have courage, all right? So let's look at this story of Tamar in Judah. Judah is a significant factor. So he has a brother whose name is Joseph. And if you were in Genesis 36, 37, there is this guy, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, right? Jacob has 11 sons. 11 boys. All right? Now, there's one. How many of you, first off, you are firstborn? Okay, good. How many of you are babies? Hey, all the babies, wave your hand like you just don't care because we know we're the most important. We are mom and dad's favorite. We are the most important. Just because you were the oldest, it does not matter. If you're the middle, we don't even ask about you, right? And if you're an only child, well, guess what? You're not as important as you think you are, okay? Babies of the family, though, were a big deal, right? So out of these 11 kids, the youngest is this kid named Joseph, right? Joseph is the favorite. He is so the favorite that his father, Jacob, gives him this coat that has all these colors on it, and he walks around, and he's got this coat, and he struts around in it. And you imagine, we already know you're the favorite, but now he's giving you this super awesome coat, and we don't get anything. We don't like you. But then guess what happens? Joseph is a dreamer because we're the babies of the family, so we can dream about life better than the rest of you, And he says, hey, guys, I had this dream the other night. And they go, okay. And he goes, all of you bow down to me, including mom and dad. And they're like, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. First time Ice Cube was ever quoted in the Bible. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Because that dude was they're like, okay, man. Well, then he has it again, another dream, and he tells him the dream, and he says, you're going to bow down to me. And finally, these brothers had it, and they're like, let's just kill him. You ever said that to your siblings, we're just going to kill you? And looked at him straight in the eye and said, I'm going to kill you. And so here's what they do. They're getting ready to kill him. And one of the brothers says, guys, we can't kill him. Here's what we should do. Take his coat, tear it up, let's kill a goat, pour the blood of the goat all over it, take the coat back to dad and say, hey, animal attacked, couldn't save him, your youngest favorite son, he's dead, sorry. And we'll take Joseph and we'll throw him in a well, and he can just die in there. So they're like, all right, good plan. Brothers, men, we're not great planners, in case you haven't figured that one out yet. But now one of them, Judah, who Judah's mentioned here in Matthew chapter 1, Judah says, you know what, guys? We don't get any benefit by just throwing him in a well. So here's what we should do. We should sell him to somebody else that comes by. At least we'll make some money. And so they're like, all right, that makes sense. So here comes some traders. They're on their way to Egypt. And what do? They take Joseph. They sell him. They tell dad he died. They still did the coat thing, told him he died. But they sold him to these traders who took him to Egypt. And those traders sold him in Egypt. So now Judah, the brother, is like, let's sell him. Let's not kill him. Let's just sell him. They're like, hey, we got some money. It's all good. So now you get to Genesis chapter 38. Joseph has just been sold into slavery, and what we know about Joseph is he is going to become a significant person in the story of Egypt. And so Judah, he decides that he is going to go off and do his own thing, and he ends up marrying a Canaanite woman. Now, here's the problem. Canaanites were not, and Israelites, they weren't supposed to marry each other. They're like enemies, right? And so Abraham married an Israelite. Abraham, Isaac, married an Israelite. Jacob, married an Israelite, not Judah. So he's going against what his father, his grandfather, and his great-grandfather have done. And so here's what happens. He marries this woman, and they have 3 boys, right? And the first one, he marries this woman named Tamar, right? Marries Tamar. And here's what it says in Genesis 38, verse 7. It says that he was a wicked man, so God took his life, right? It's the first time we've ever seen God taking someone's life in the scriptures. It says that he took his life because he was wicked. Now, didn't have no kids, and so now Tamar is a widow. So here's the problem. If you are a widow without kids in this society, you are the most vulnerable person in society at this moment. There's no one more, because there's no one to provide for you. There's no one to take care of you. You are on your own. It's bad news for you. However, here's what they did. They had this law that said the closest brother would essentially marry you, and when you had a kid, that kid would belong to the dead brother, not the brother who had it. That kid that was born would then get his grandfather's inheritance as one of the 3 original brothers. So there's this second brother who now has been charged with giving Tamar children that are not technically going to be his, but going to be his brother, and he's also going to have to split his inheritance 3 ways now instead of 2. Now, mathematically speaking, 1, 2, 3. 2 is better than 3 when you're receiving money, all right? And so every time he has sex with Tamar, he does not finish the job, right? There's no other way I can say that without getting very educational right now. And so you know what God does? He says he was wicked and he killed him. So God's now 2 people. And so Judah, who is the father of these 2 boys that are now dead, he has a 3rd boy. And again, Tamar didn't have any kids, so she's still a widow. No kids, nothing. And so Judah, he's like, I'm supposed to give this 3rd kid to her? Like, she is the black widow. She's like the widow of death. Like, no. And so he says, you know what? Go back to your dad's house. My youngest isn't ready to get married yet. And once he's of age, we'll come get you. He has no intentions of getting Tamar. So eventually, Judah's wife dies. He mourns her death. He still is not going to give his youngest son to Tamar. And so here's what happens in the story. Judah has to go to another town to shear his sheep. This is a big celebration. It's going to be a party. It's going to have a great time. Tamar finds out, and she dresses like a temple prostitute. Now, here in Canaan, where they're living, the Canaanites, they had temple prostitutes. They would dress up with these veiled faces. It was a way that you would worship their gods. And so she dresses like one of these. She goes out onto the road to where these people would hang out, and Judah comes walking along and sees her, but she's got a veil over her face, so he doesn't know who she is. And he walks up to her and says, hey, like, what's the rate? You know? And so they negotiate this. And she says, it's going to cost you a goat because he didn't have any money. And so he gives her a goat, but he doesn't have a goat with him. And so she goes, listen, I need some collateral if this is going to happen. So she gives him his he gives her his ring, his cord, and his staff. These are 3 things that would identify you. Like, it's like giving over like your social security number, your credit card, and your driver's license. Like this is what this is, right? And so she has all these things. And so they, do what they do, right? He takes off. He goes to shear the sheep. She puts back on the clothes she had. She goes back to her dad's house. Now, Judah gets to where the sheep are. He sends his friend to go take this goat to where she was. He shows up and he's like, hey, has anyone seen that? And they're like, no, there's no one like that here. And so he takes it. He's like, couldn't find her. And Judah says, basically says, listen, if we can't find her and we make a big deal about not being able to find her, it's going to bring a lot of shame. People are going to get really judgy. So let's just let her keep what she has and move on, right? Fast forward 3 months. Tamar is pregnant, right? She's still not married. She's pregnant. And if you're doing the math, Judah, that one time. And now you're really doing the math. You're like, wait a minute, that was son. Yes, in-laws. So he finds out that she's pregnant. Again, he didn't know that it was her. And so he is furious because technically he still owns Tamar. He still owns her because he's supposed to give his 3rd son to her. And so he's furious. And so he goes, we're going to kill her. The sentence is to put her to death, and we're not just going to stone her, we'll throw rocks at her until she dies. We're going to burn her to death, which is the worst way to do it. It's usually safe for priests who really broke the rules. And so they say, you know what? We're going to burn her. And so they bring her out. They're getting ready to kill her. She has his staff, his cord, and his ring. And she hands it to him and says, the father of my children is the one who these belong to. And she steps back and walks away. What just happened? Right? Look at this. Genesis 38:25. But as they were taking her out to kill her, she sent this message to her father-in-law. The man who owns these things made me pregnant. Look closely. Whose seal and cord and walking stick are these? Judah recognized them immediately and said, she is more righteous than I am because I didn't arrange for her to marry my son Shelah. And Judah never slept with Tamar again. So he goes, whoa, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I took advantage of my brother years ago and made money off of him. I've now taken advantage of this woman. And so all of a sudden, this moment where there is a courageous decision by Tamar to do what she did. One, to go and try to get pregnant because technically Judah is responsible for her life. He is responsible for her protection. He's responsible for her provision because she belongs to him. But then also to not go public, to not go, oh, by the way, Judah, these are yours. It's like a bad case of Maury. If you're old enough, you remember Maury Povich, you are not the father, right? You are this is literally all of yours. Everything. She doesn't do that. She literally puts her life back in his hands. Incredibly courageous decisions. And Judah recognizes his own sin and her righteousness. And so let me ask you this question. What courageous decision do you need to make right now? Now, before you get really judgmental when you hear this story, because that's what we tend to do. We tend to go, oh man, those are really bad things. The author of Genesis never brings any condemnation to anybody. Never judges anyone, never passes any judgment. Tells the story of God's faithfulness, of God with us. Because if this doesn't happen, the line doesn't continue. And so what courageous decision do you have to make? And no, when I ask that question, I'm not asking you what courageous sinful decision you have to make. We're in a little bit different context, a little bit different world. But what's a courageous decision you have to make in your marriage? What's a courageous decision you have to make in your finances, in your health, in your relationships? Is there something courageous that you need to do right now, a present action of courageousness that leads to future hope. Now, here's what's scary about courageous decisions right now, is that it can feel like, I don't know if I can do it. But what does this line continue to tell us? Emmanuel, God with us. That this is God with us. God will be with you in your courageous decision. So what's the courageous decision you have to make? Now here's what we find out about Judah. This is a life-altering, changing moment for Judah. Because remember, he was the guy that took advantage of his brother, took advantage of Tamar. And so now, if you fast forward into Genesis 39 and on, Joseph, the brother that he sold, it's been years. He's now the second highest command in all of Israel. And Judah and all of his brothers, they're in a famine, and so they have to go to Joseph. And they are standing before their brother. They don't recognize him. He recognizes them. And you know what ends up happening? Judah is the one that places his life on the line for one of his younger brothers. That this is the moment that it all changed for Judah. That this is the moment that after Jacob is ready to die, who's their father, Jacob is the one that passes the lineage and everything. Judah is now going to be the one that this promise is going to continue through. And so you begin to see like, oh my goodness, this is a wicked, crazy story. But God is with us. He's continuing in our story. He's taking horrible things and turning them for good. He is helping us walk courageous lives. God with us. So then the next story comes in Matthew chapter 1. Verse 4. Ram was the father of Abinadab. Abinadab was the father of Nahshon. Nahshon was the father of Solomon. Solomon was the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. All right. Thought number 2, it's this. What present action is required? Faith. It is awkward when you have to talk about the birth of Christ and God with us in the first 2 stories of women in his lineage. One is this story about a prostitute, and one is a prostitute, because that's what Rahab was, right? Rahab's a prostitute. She runs this inn/brothel in Jericho. And here's what happens. Remember, God is faithful. So eventually the Israelites, they go into slavery in Egypt. They are eventually freed, and they are told by God, you are going to take the land of Canaan, which Rahab is a resident of. Now God said, listen, you need to wipe out all the Canaanites, every one of them. None of them should live. And people think, oh man, like God's condoning genocide, like that's a horrible thing. He's not. God's given them 300 years at this point to become followers of God, followers of Yahweh, as it says in the Old Testament. They are choosing not to. And so now Joshua is tasked with leading these people into the promised land. Moses has died. All that generation died because they didn't believe God's promise to give them the land. And so now here's Joshua, and he's tasked with taking over all of Canaan. And what does he do? He sends out some spies to go spy on the city of Jericho. And these 2 spies, they go to the house of Rahab because it was an inn/a brothel. And here's what the story gets a little crazy. These 2 spies, the king of Jericho finds out the 2 spies are there. And so what does Rahab do? She hides them, right? Hides them. It's weird. Like, why would you hide them? But look at what it says in Joshua chapter 2, starting in verse 8. Before the spies went to sleep that night, Rahab went up on the roof to talk with them. I know the Lord has given you this land, she told them. So she hides the spies and then tells the king and his men they already left town, go that way. And so everyone goes that way. They close the city wall. Everything is closed now. They're chasing after these spies that are hiding on her roof. And she says, I know the Lord's given you this land. We are all afraid of you. Everyone in the land is living in terror, for we have heard how the Lord made a dry path for you through the Red Sea when you left Egypt. And we know what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, whose people you completely destroyed. No wonder our hearts have melted in fear. No one has the courage to fight after hearing such things. For the Lord, your God, is the supreme God of heavens above and the earth below. Now swear to me by the Lord that you will be kind to me and my family since I've helped you. Give me some guarantee that when Jericho is conquered, you will let me live, along with my father and mother, my brothers and my sisters, and all their families. We offer our own lives as a guarantee for your safety, the men agreed. If you don't betray us, we will keep our promise and be kind to you when the Lord gives us the land. So they make this deal with Rahab. They climb out of her window, which is on the outside of the wall. They go back to Joseph and they're like, let's go. They're terrified of us. They're afraid. So they go and they show up. They cross the Jordan River on dry land, just like they did in at the Red Sea. And then for 6 days, they march around the city one time each day. No one talks, no one says anything. Imagine seeing this. You see an army just marching around your city. They're not talking, they're not saying anything, they're just marching. And imagine the fear of Rahab. She's gathered all of her family, all of her relatives inside her house. She's on the outside of the wall, so she can see them marching around. The 7th day, they march around 7 times, and then they shout, and the walls fall down. Imagine being in Rahab's house when all of the walls fall down around you. Like, no, they're gone. And Rahab and her family are saved. Rahab has incredible faith. She made the declaration at the very beginning, our hearts are melting in fear of you because your God is the God of heavens and earth below. No one can stand against him. Nothing can happen. Like, we don't stand a chance. But be faithful. I'm going to ask you to take and keep my life safe in exchange for what I'm keeping your life safe. Rahab is filled with faith. If you fast forward into Hebrews chapter 11, which is known as the heroes of the faith, Rahab is mentioned. This prostitute who had enough faith to believe that God is the God of the universe above everything else and that her people could not stand against him, but he was going to be faithful to keep a promise as long as she was faithful to keep hers. Let me ask you this question. Where do you need faith in your life? Where are you struggling as you look towards that future hope? You look towards the future and you're like, I don't know, it seems so far away. Maybe the present action that you need right now is faith. Faith in the God that can do the impossible. Faith in the God that keeps his promises no matter what the circumstances around you are. You might be surrounded by an army, but if you've been faithful to him, he will be faithful to you. You might be stuck in the room looking down at all of the disaster around. Struggles in life. But God is with you to have faith. Faith that he won't leave you or forsake you. Faith that he will never abandon you. Faithful that he can take whatever challenge your marriage is facing right now and turn it around. Faith that he can take whatever the healing and the diagnosis is and begin to bring healing to it. Faith that no matter what you're facing with your kids, that he can begin to do incredible things. It requires a faith in the present for hope in the future. A faith that says, I know that God will never abandon me. I know that he will come through. What faith do you need? Because the story of Rahab is faith. And know this, it's not faith in someone, it's not faith in something, it's faithful in God. Faith in God alone. That I'm going to put all of my faith in him because he is faithful. Where do you need faith? Where do you need to practice faith? And so the story continues, Matthew chapter 1, verse 5. Solomon was the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz was the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. And so what present action is required? Number 3 is this, sacrifice. Okay? Number 3 is sacrifice. Ruth is the next woman in the genealogy of Jesus. Here's what is interesting about these 3 women we've looked at. Canaanite, Moabite. None of them have been Israelites. It's almost like God, from the very beginning, wanted us to realize that Jesus is for anyone and everyone and whosoever, that it doesn't matter what nationality you come from or where you come from or what your circumstance or what your socioeconomic status is. It doesn't matter who you are. Anybody can come to Jesus. It's the beauty of the gospel that starts at the very beginning of the scriptures. And so there's Ruth. There's her mother-in-law is named Naomi, and Naomi and her husband, they live in Bethlehem. And so Bethlehem is experiencing a famine, and so they go down to Moab, where there is food and work. And so her and her husband, they have 2 sons. Those 2 sons marry 2 Moabite women. One is named Orpah, and the other one is Ruth. 10 years they live in Moab. But eventually, Naomi's husband dies, but so do her 2 sons. And so now we're left with 3 widowed women who have no provision, no protection, nothing. And so Naomi hears that things are good again in Bethlehem, and so she decides she's going to go back to Bethlehem. And so she starts on this journey, and she finally turns around and tells her daughter-in-laws who are with her, she says to them, listen, go back to your mom. Like, go back to your mother's house. I can't, I'm too old to have kids. I can't give you another son. I can't take care of you. Like, go. And you know what they do? They have a moment and they just break down and cry. Like, that's literally what it says in the Bible. They just broke down and cried. So then they walk a little bit longer. Naomi tells them again, go. And so Orpah, she turns around and she starts walking away. And then this is what Ruth says to Naomi. Because Naomi says, go, just like she did, go away. Keep moving on. Like, there's no hope for you with me. Go back to your family, go back to your people. Everything is going to be better there. And look at what Ruth says to her in Ruth chapter 1, verse 16. But Ruth replied, don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us. What an incredible statement, right? This is a Moabite woman that somehow along the line sees Naomi and sees her faith and sees her God and says, I am not leaving you at all. I will turn from my people. I will turn from what I know. I will turn from where I was born, where I've raised. All of the comfort, everything there, I will turn from that and I'm going with you, and don't let anything but death separate us. What a powerful statement that she's made. So they head to Bethlehem, right? And they get there, and again, they're widows, so they don't have anyone to take care of them.